Hello, everybody. So today we're talking about the case of Renee Welka. And this is a case that, again, we surprisingly have a more decent amount of information and photos for. Typically, I come in here saying, I'm sorry, we don't have a lot of photos, the information is really sparse. But just like Lola Fry's video, when I did this video's research, I was surprised at how much information I was able to find. So I am ready to present that to you and tell you guys about Renee. So all the links I used for research will be down below like always, and let's go ahead and get into this. So Renee was a manufacturing student at Eastern Michigan University. She put herself through college by working as a waitress at Mountain Jack's, a restaurant in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She was described as a ray of sunshine, and she just exuberated charisma, positivity, and her sassy humor could just draw a smile on anyone's face. On July 29th, 1994, she worked a Friday night shift at Mountain Jack's and then returned back to her apartment, which was located at the Glencoe apartment complex. She stayed at her home for some time before going back out again. Renee and a friend returned to the parking lot of Glencoe Hills Apartments at 2 a.m. on July 30th in her white Ford Escort. Before they were able to even park, an unknown male approached their car and shot through the back windshield of the driver's seat, hitting Renee in the back and fleeing the scene. Renee slammed her foot on the gas, and she was actually able to drive her Escort a short distance more before she finally collapsed at the wheel. However, the car did not make it out of the parking lot. Police would arrive minutes later, and they found Renee unconscious, slumped over the wheel of her car. She was taken to St. Joseph Mercy Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 5:10 a.m. on July 30th, 1994. Thankfully, her friend did live. It was only Renee that was shot. When police arrived at the scene, her friend identified a suspect in the crowd of onlookers that matched a resemblance to the shooter. And the police would arrest 18-year-old Clarence D. Powell at the scene of the crime. Clarence also lived in the same apartment complex as Renee, but they did not know each other at the time of the event. Clarence told police that he had heard the commotion, so he rushed outside to see what was happening, and then he was basically arrested immediately. He would plead with cops that he was innocent and that the real killer was getting away. Captain John Phillips made a comment to the media that Clarence is to be arraigned on August 1st. So basically, no actual investigation was done. So this was July 30th. He is to be arraigned on August 1st. I believe there's only 30 or 31 days in July. So basically 1-2 days later, he is being arraigned for a crime that they're not even actually investigating. I'm not saying that the friend was wrong. I'm just saying that this was a moment of panic. This is someone who ran up on you and shot through the back of the car. I can only imagine you didn't get the best look at him. And she just watched her friend die. And you see someone who slightly resembles the shooter in the crowd. And you might be like, hey, like, he kind of looks like him. And you would think, okay, the police would take him in, and there would be like a lineup, some questioning. He is immediately arrested and be like, yeah, he's being arraigned in 2 days. There is absolutely no actual investigation that's being done. And to me, what happened to Renee was so sad, but it kind of almost immediately put me on Clarence's side because he didn't even get a fighting chance, honestly. Like, there are people that things go on like this and they immediately go outside to see what's going on. And he was probably scared, okay? Like, he was a black kid. So, I was going to say black man. He was only 18 years old. So, he was a black kid. I can only imagine that he was probably scared that this was going to be blamed on him. And you know what? It did get blamed on him. So I'm not saying that he didn't do it. There is a chance that the friend was right and that he did do it and he ran away because he didn't want to be caught. And he could be one of those weirdos that came back out to like study the scene like some killers do. Or he really could have just heard the commotion and came outside and was immediately arrested. And yeah, I just think it's crazy that the captain told media basically then and there, yeah, he's being arraigned. Like, we're doing no investigation. We're going off solely on the word of the friend. That just was absolutely mind-boggling to me. On August 1st, Clarence is arraigned at 1:30 p.m. in the 14A District Court on one charge of open murder and one charge of committing a felony while in possession of a firearm. His preliminary hearing was set for August 11th, and the district judge, Betty Wigian, denied Clarence bond, causing him to be held in the Washita County Jail. So, it's so sad, but Clarence was actually supposed to be traveling in a few weeks to attend college, but those plans changed when he became a lead suspect, in something that he might not have even done. On August 7th, 75 of his friends, family, and his supporters gathered at the parking lot of the apartment complex to stage a rally because they didn't believe that he had done this, and they were trying to come up with ways that they could help him out and prove his innocence. On August 11th, at his preliminary hearing, or his preliminary examination, his case was dismissed. And all charges against him were dropped due to the lack of evidence. The preliminary examination lasted less than 5 minutes, and he walked away a free man. The evidence against him was primarily eyewitness accounts, which was not enough for prosecutors to proceed with the case. Between August 12th and August 31st of 1994, newspaper articles quoted police who said that they were waiting on a ballistics test. These tests would demonstrate that Clarence had gunshot residue on his hands at the time of the crime, and they say that he was still the main suspect of the case. On August 5th, 1998, 4 years later, police said that they were no further in their case of Renee Welka's murder, and they neither confirmed nor denied the results of the ballistics test. And I want to pause here because they are really just holding on to the fact that they think Clarence Powell is the person that did this. So much so that they're not confirming or denying the results of the ballistics test. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think it came back that it was not him. He did not do it. And they did not want to come out and say anything. Because there is no way in hell that 4 years later they still did not get the results of the ballistics test. And you know that if it was positive, he would have been arrested immediately. I think that they were way too hasty in their arrest of him. I definitely think there might have been some racial motivation. I feel that in my soul, the way that they handled this. He's being held without bond. They're telling all these news outlets he's the one that did it. He's the main suspect. They only have eyewitness accounts. They have no actual evidence, and they basically have to let him go because, they're being told we can't keep him here. There's not enough to proceed with this case. And so it kind of feels like a threat with we're waiting on the ballistics test. We're waiting. You're the main suspects. It kind of feels almost threatening. And then years later, they're doing interviews. They will not confirm or deny the results. And it kind of feels like they finally got those results back and realized that they were wrong and that Clarence Powell was not their man, and they did not want to apologize because I do, like I said, partially believe that it was racially motivated. They didn't want to apologize because of that factor, but also they could have been embarrassed that they made such a hasty decision and just being it's him, he's being arraigned, he's the main suspect, and they thought too highly to backtrack, and they said, you know what, we're just not going to say anything. In March 2000, a task force was formed by the Michigan State Post to investigate her case. On July 30th, 2004, on the 10-year anniversary, Lieutenant Ray Hagan said that her case is being actively investigated, and many new pieces of information are being developed, but still no update on the case. So it is now 20 years later from the 10-year anniversary. All of these new pieces of information are being developed, but we still have no information on the case. So Renee, who was murdered in her car, just coming home after a night out at work, just wanted to be with her friend, probably just trying to live her life, having a fun night, trying to unwind, is brutally murdered. Her poor friend had to see this happen. I cannot imagine the panic that had to be going through her friend. Her friend is just killed at the wheel. She's scared. She's, am I next? Fortunately, she does live. And all these years later, 30 years later, we have no idea who did it. The police say they do, but they're probably wrong. And Renee is going without justice. Her family is going without justice. And they're saying they have all these new pieces of information, all this new evidence. Well, if it's giving you so much, clarity, so much to kind of press you forward that you're making a comment on it, what is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you going to tell us what's going on? Do you have a new suspect? Is Clarence still your suspect? Like, Renee's family, they deserve to be told what's going on. They deserve to know who did this to their daughter. They deserve to know, like, was it actually Clarence? Did you let him get away? Was it not Clarence and you were too hasty in your decision and the real killer did get away? All these years later and we're still trying to figure out who did it and you messed up? I 100% believe that the police screwed up. If it was Clarence, I feel like if they hadn't been so hasty with it, they had actually bothered to do some actual investigating, they might have been able to find information that would have eventually led them to finding out that Clarence was the killer. If they hadn't been like, immediately he's being arraigned in one day. And I feel like setting their sights on him too quickly and him not being the killer, they just one track mind, tunnel vision, he's the only guy. They just did not do their job correctly. They completely dropped the ball either way in this case. And that's completely unfair to not only Renee, but also to Clarence, who I don't believe he did it, if I'm being honest. And that is solely because of the police's actions. And, of course, the ballistics test that after all these years, 30 years later, there's definitely a result in their hands, and they haven't arrested him. Because if there was gunshot residue, that's putting him a little bit, that's kind of cementing his spot, you know what I'm saying? He would have already been arrested. So I kind of take that as he's innocent. At least, for the most part, I believe he's innocent. And 30 years later, Renee still has no justice. As far as I know, they have not released anything about her case. Hopefully they will. Hopefully this can finally get solved and she can be put to rest and her family can know what happened to her. I just feel like the police played games, they were way too hasty, and they really just screwed up this case for Renee. That being said, she is in my thoughts. This is so horrifying to think about. Like, she was just trying to live her life, have a fun night out. This happens to her. And it doesn't feel like the police really do their jobs. I understand that they're probably listening to the friend, but I still believe that the friend might have been too shaken up to really see that much. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below, like always. I'd be really interested in knowing what you guys have to say, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.